Hey, so I wanted to show off the ability in AppMaker to now edit the build phases. So you can see here we have each of the build steps for creating the app. This is what's actually used in Xcode when we build it. So for example, you can see the app renders fine. If I come into the build phases and I just remove a file, for example, this content view.swift, and then I go to the app, you see it's going to fail to render. And that's because this file right here is no longer being compiled before it runs it. Of course, we're not actually compiling in AppMaker, but it's kind of pretending to let you get a preview. I can just add it right back, and you see it works just fine. This works for other things too. In the build phases, for example, the resources build phase, I'm adding the assets bundle. If I remove that, we're not going to get the assets like the images. So boom, there, the image doesn't load. But everything else works just fine. And of course, I can add that right back in. I could add it back in like this by just clicking this guy. Or, for example, I could go to the Git manager, and you can see that I've changed the project file. I can go to Advanced, discard the file change. If I open that back up now, it's fine. And that's because it just reset our build phases to where the last commit was. You can also rearrange these. I'm not sure why you would. Just change the order of how the build is done. I just don't know what difference that would make, but it's something you could do. And then I guess the only other thing I wanted to mention is that you also have the ability to change your Xcode project. So for example, this one just has one Xcode project file in this repo, but there are some projects I've seen that have like multiple. So you could switch that. You can also change the target. And this one, of course, also only has one target. So if you had multiple, you could just switch targets and now, of course, change what build phases you also have. The future I'd like to have is you can add app targets or things like that. So you can really do a lot of nitty-gritty work in AppMaker, and it'll be more like an IDE in some respects. The other thing I want to do, and this is probably before the next update goes out, is I want to change this view here so that instead of it being a file explorer like it is right now, it's going to be a project explorer. So it's going to mirror how, okay, this button stopped working. Swift UI for you. How when I'm like going to this add page, you can see these files here are all the files in the project, right? As these sort of, I don't know what you call it, a project, the Xcode project files. They have groups and files, and they're kind of like they're kind of like their own file structure, but it's not like the actual system file structure. It's like it's inside the Xcode project. So it'll basically just point to these files here when you're going through the editor, through the Explorer here. And then when you do things like add a file or whatnot, that will then get added to the project in the build phases automatically. So that way people can add and remove and rename files, and it will play nice with the Xcode project. The other thing, though, is there are some interesting files that people tend to like readmes and stuff. So I'm going to leave there an option so that you can browse it as if it's just the file explorer and not as a project explorer as well. So yeah, that's it. Also, the next AppMaker update will probably not be on my personal account. It'll probably be on the new AppMaker business Apple developer account. So be looking out for that if you want to try out this new update.